This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, it is 6:03. I will now call to order the May 8th meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Cassie, do you have other housekeeping items to go over?
Yeah, I'd like to know, again, if any technical difficulties occur or the meeting ends abruptly, the hearing will be automatically administratively continued to the May 22nd meeting at 6 p.m. and will not resume tonight. Please contact the conservation agent at 413-529-1463 or conservation@easthamptonma.gov for any questions. Also, all participants are asked to remain muted until it is time for public comments. Participants should use the raise hand function or send a chat to the agent. Please state your name for the record at the beginning of any comments, and please do not utilize the chat function unless it is necessary to indicate to the agent that you would like to make a comment. All private chats are generated into a transcript that will be included in the public record and are not, in fact, private. Discussion within the chat is prohibited. And that's it.
Do we have any public concerns, non-agenda items?
I've not received any. I don't know if anyone here has anything that's not related to something on the agenda that we want to talk about. And
right.
I don't see any.
Hearing none.
Yeah.
We'll move on to public hearings. Our first order of business is a public hearing continued from 4/10/2023 for a notice of intent filed by Furrow Engineering on behalf of Tasty Top Development LLC for a new mixed-use commercial and residential development with associated stormwater management system at 93, 95, and 97 Northampton Street, map 128, lots 112, 113, and 114. This is Mass DEP file number 1510322. So we have had some new materials submitted since the last meeting. And the first thing that I wanted to ask the applicant to please bring up and walk us through is the addition of the sewer grading work on what I believe is an abutting property, but it's a little bit hard to tell on the sheet that it's actually shown what's going on. So can you please walk us through that?
Yeah, Cassie, is it possible to?
Yeah, I can put it on the TV.
That's C5.3.
Okay. Hold on a second here. Okay, 5.3. There we go.
Okay, you make that larger.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Yeah, we did make a revision to the plans. So if you'll see, this is the 100-foot buffer line right here. And we had the sewer line coming through on the left side of the building or the north side of the building, connecting. We were going to install a manhole and connect them to the existing interceptor line. There's an existing manhole right here on the line already. So what we did was we shifted the sewer line to the other side of the building. So we came around the other side, which pulled approximately 260 linear feet of line out of the buffer zone to this side. This is the property line right here. So as soon as we cross into the abutting property, it's showing the limit of work on the abutting property. That's the dash line here. It will be tying into that existing manhole.
So we're still not seeing limits of grading or grading depicted.
So no, there will be no change in grade because we're tying into an existing manhole. So it'll just be, you're talking about on the abutting property?
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be no change in grade. So they'll just be digging the trench, installing and putting back to the same grade it was at.
And all of that work is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, as you just showed us. And Cassie, there are no other resource areas in that vicinity that we would need to be concerned with?
Not as far as I understand it to be.
Okay.
This is where we have the delineation for it.
Great. So the reason I bring this up is because there was concern previously that this work may have involved work in jurisdictional areas on an abutter's property, in which case the filing would have been administratively incomplete because we would have needed a signature from that abutter. So in this case, you seem to have an issue to work out with the abutter, but it doesn't have any impact on us because you're not in jurisdictional areas. So thank you for adding that. That's helpful. All right, you want to walk us through other changes?
Yeah. So yeah, we received comments from Cassie from you guys at the last meeting. So we can respond to those. So I'll just give a brief overview. Besides the sewer line, the conservation seed mix grass that was proposed in some areas of the site. Actually, Cassie, do you mind pulling up
Yeah.
C3.0?
Hold on. 3.0, you said?
Yeah.
I need to reshare it. Sorry, hold on.
So we replaced that proposed conservation seed mix with a New England conservation and wildlife seed mix, which includes all native grasses and wildflowers and lagoons, which will also provide pollinators to the site as was hoped for.
Okay. Is that up in this? I'm going to zoom out. Is that helpful, or do you want me to zoom out more?
Yep, and so we added the boundaries of where the two different seed mixes were going to be. So the kind of hatched dotted one, that's the New England Conservation Wildlife seed mix. So it's located in all 7 of the basins within the fenced-in area for some of them. For others, they don't have fences, and then also this area within 30 feet of this white one line will be New England Conservation and Wildlife seed mix.
That's the restoration area that you're going to do. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
And those mixes are designed for that periodic inundation you're going to see in those basins?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you
Yeah,
using?
it did. I could submit a cut sheet for the seed mix if you'd like. It did specify that it was good for stormwater basins. So.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could send that on.
Yeah, sure. Also, all the as requested, the mountain junipers that were proposed were removed and replaced with a native shrub. We went with St. John's wort. We also diversified the proposed tree species on site. We replaced several of the red maples trees with honey locust and sweet gum trees to diversify.
I'm sorry, honey locust and what?
Sweet gum.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, to go back to the seed mix, were you going to also put that in all the restoration areas?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear your question.
Are you gonna put the seed mix, the wildlife seed mix in all the restoration areas?
Oh, are you referring to the only other area is the bridge area? Is that what you're referring
Yes.
to? Is that what Dan specified? A conservation mix as well specified for that. Yeah. Yes.
And are you gonna add a pollinator mix, or you're just using this to?
The mix includes wildflower seed as well. So it's essentially a competition seed and pollinator seed mix.
Okay. And the trees you just mentioned,
Yep.
you have the honey locust, and then you have thornless honey locust. So which,
Just thornless honey locust and sweet gum trees.
okay,
Those two, and then the red maples. And there were 2 others listed.
would you be willing to add in some other choices?
Yeah, we're open to suggestions.
Okay, no, just what I was reading about this week, it said that they have spiky pods that could have, cause issues for animals or people stepping on them or slipping on them. And then the thornless honey locust, I think I was reading that it could have invasive roots. So I don't know if you could just supply or show us, actually, you have it in your appendix that there are other choices.
Yeah, so I submitted that, the list of the mass DEP species. So we were looking for, the trees that had high stall tolerance as well as, being native. So those seemed like two good choices for streetscape trees. If there's another one on that list that you would prefer, we'd be happy to.
Yeah, I mean,
into the plans.
I was just looking through it. I had questions about that too, but, so this Prince George's County design is attached to your Mass DEP plant species list. But what is Prince George's County design? Is this a New England native? Right here, it says it's adapted from.
That's just what they originated for this, but those pages are straight out of the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook, and that's where they adapted it from.
Okay, so these are all native, or
So
choices for New England.
That specifies whether it's native. So
For New England. Okay,
correct for Massachusetts, because it's the Mass DEP.
so there were some other ones like the page 29 red top had a high salt tolerance. It's a shade tree. It's native. And it's high for wildlife. So I just didn't know if, there were a couple other choices through here for grasses and for trees. Just to keep on the list in case the commission thinks those other trees are not feasible for the area. I'm not sure, only because there was additional problems with those two that I was reading. So just hoping they could go through this. I don't know if we suggest, or they could just go through and see what else is native that would work for the area.
Mhm.
Okay. And then you also have that tufted hair grass.
Mhm.
There's about 400.
Yep.
And then in this, it says that they can become invasive. And my concern is if they're too close to the buffer zone, if they are invasive, if they'll spread. And there were other grasses that were native that didn't say they were invasive.
Yeah, so the tufted grass, I believe, are limited to the beds up against the buildings. So they are going to be surrounded by mowed grass, but we can look into alternatives if you prefer something else.
Sure. But it also says they're in the rain gardens.
Correct, which are up against all the rain gardens are adjacent to the residential buildings
Okay.
in a mulch bed. But we can look into alternatives to the tufted grass as well.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm open to any more questions. I think those hit all the major changes to the plans.
Okay.
You're on the winter berries too. It says you're putting them in planters.
Those will also be in the mulch beds up against the buildings. So, Bessie, do you mind pulling up C 3.4?
Yeah. Hold on just a second. I'm gonna go over to,
Yeah, if you go up below, I want to see the planting list first,
oh, I see.
a little bit further.
Oh, sorry. I see.
Yeah. And now if you go over to the building.
Sorry, thanks for bearing with me.
So this is the rain garden. So there is some winterberry in there. It's a mix. The winterberry is on, up against the building. This is a mulched area. This is the rain garden area. The stone swales, collecting the rainwater for the rain garden. And then if you go to the front of the building. There's just a couple, three or four throughout the front of the building.
So they're planted in ground or not in plant
In the
terms?
ground, in the most dense, yeah.
Any questions from the commission? So Kathy, can you bring us up to speed on where we are with the peer review process, please?
Yeah, so, the commission, approved my RFP to go out to to solicit from firms which do peer reviews such as this. We solicited from Horsley Witten Group, Stantec, and Beals and Thomas. We only received a proposal from Beals and Thomas in response to that solicitation, within the deadline. And that is included in there. Because the last meeting had to be canceled, all the deadlines for that RFP process had to be shifted down accordingly so that they would still have enough time to complete the peer review. So that's the only thing that's changed since the RFP that you saw before. But Beals and Thomas was able to provide a letter stating that they are okay with that changed timeline, which is included in there. And what's for the commission now is to choose whether to accept that proposal and thus initiate the peer review process. What that will include is basically there's set dates by which I would need to receive funds from the applicant. And then I won't sign the proposal that you all choose until those funds are received, because those will be used to pay for the peer review process. And then the new date to receive the initial review by the peer reviewer is now July 10th. Should be available at that meeting.
Has everyone had a chance to review the proposal? Are there any questions, comments?
I guess I was just curious. I seem to remember the applicant putting or stating that they didn't want to pay above a certain amount. The proposal, I think, is more than that amount. So I'm just curious what happens.
So
when
I reached out to, I shared it with the applicant when it was received, the proposal, and they didn't submit any formal comments related to that. If you have any comments you want to make now about whether, because the commission, you can make comments about the proposal for the commission to consider, but ultimately it's the commission's decision on who they want to choose for the peer review.
Now with the staff that listed, no, but I mean, this firm has a good reputation in general, and the cost seems pretty reasonable to me. So I guess we have the choice to accept it or to try to find additional proposals which would add, take more time.
And there were no comments from the proponent, is that correct?
We just thought it was high, but we'll deal with it.
Okay. All right, so if there are no objections from the commission, we can vote to accept the proposal and move forward and get the peer review started.
Move to accept the peer review proposal.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Fletcher?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Motion carries. So Kathy, you will move forward to get that in place, secure the escrow funds and get the contract signed?
Correct.
Great. And you said that that new date for the initial peer review to be due is July
10th. And I created an updated RFP for that. And like I said, Beals and Thomas supplied a letter that said that that's okay
Great.
for them. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to see if there are further public comments at this point. But before we continue, I think we should discuss whether we want to just go ahead and continue to that July date when we'll have the information. So let's come back to that, but I want to open it up to any public comments at this point.
I have 2 written comments that I can read, or we can do the in-person ones first, or online ones.
Great, you can go ahead and do the written ones first.
So the first one was received on May 7th from Robert Parent. And it says, Cassie, similar to last month, I've limited my review to identifying changes in the documents as compared to the previous submittals. The drainage report appears to be unchanged from the 3/13/2023 submittal, other than an inclusion of an additional O&M plan information noted in the applicant's cover letter. The plans have been updated to include the revised sewer line location as described in the applicant's cover letter. Note the applicant did not respond to the commission's request to provide written permission from the adjacent property owner for the work that is proposed on the adjacent property. It should also be noted that construction of portions of the project, such as stormwater basins F1 and F4, will clearly require access to the adjoining property since regrading is proposed up to the property line. Similarly, approval from the adjacent property owner should be granted for this access. A couple of things that I've mentioned previously that are remaining concern include incomplete soil logs to confirm estimated seasonal high groundwater table, incomplete erosion and sediment controls that fully depict the limits of work for each phase and measures to accompany work that is shown on the project phasing plan. Lastly, the applicant's cover letter states that all street trees will have high salt tolerance. There are numerous references available that indicate red maples are sensitive to salt. The link below from the University of Minnesota is just one example. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Bob Parent. And I've included in here just that page that was linked to, and I'll note that this is from the University of Minnesota extension, and there is a part where it says maples are sensitive to salt. I don't know if you want to read the whole thing, but it's available if anybody wants to see it.
Great, thank you.
Let's see. The next comment was received in the mail from Larry and Lucille Kostick. It's primarily related to the historic canal. I can read it and then you guys can make a decision. I don't know if it might not be necessarily pertinent to the commission. But there's also, my understanding, I think it was also sent to the planning board, which I think is true. We are sending, dear Julianne Buse, the chairperson, and the other members of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This letter was received April 14th, 2023. We are sending you information pertaining to the historical New Haven and Northampton Canal Greenway that trespasses on or near the border of the back of our property. This historical canal Greenway also continues on parallel with the Manhan River and takes a turn north at some point towards Northampton, traversing across Jim Seltzer's property and or the Tasty Top proposed project property. We noticed on one of the maps of the proposed Tasty Top project that the New Haven and Northampton Canal Greenway is not in the correct place on the map as it cuts through our neighborhood. We've enclosed a copy of the front of a book about this historic canal written by Robert R. Madison, published in 2016 after a lengthy research of this canal that went through 16 communities, was 87 miles in length, and was in operation from 1828 to 1847. Also enclosed is a copy of the Manhan Trail map, which also shows the path of the New Haven and Northampton Canal. You'll also find copies of the Easthampton Canal History, the book, taken from the book. Note, if anyone is interested in purchasing the book, you may only be able to purchase through the Southwick Historical Society. The author is a prominent member of the society, and all proceeds from the sale of the book go towards placing signs along the highways and byways of the 16 communities showing where the historic canal passed through each community. Why? It's historic. And as the author states, progress is slowly destroying the canal. Maybe these historic road signs will alert everyone that something historic occurred in this place. The address is Southwick Historic Society, Inc., P.O. Box 323, Southwick, Mass. 01077, online, southwickhistoricalsociety.org. We also included a copy of the front and back of a postcard that was received a year ago on April 15, 2022 from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. It is proof that our property contains a portion of the Hampshire and Hampden Canal, as they call it. The postcard states that they did a walking survey between May and July of 2022, gathering visual and photographic documentation, and it states the results will be incorporated in a final report of the history and existing conditions of the significant regional resource. We sincerely hope this information will be useful to your board. Larry and Lucy Kostick, they've included a copy of that and a copy of this New Haven and Northampton Greenway relevant portions as they describe. You can read if you like, but
Thank you. Are there any comments from the people in the room tonight?
I just like to suggest.
Reintroduce yourself for the record.
Marty Klein, 7 Stone Bethlehem. I just suggest a couple of tree species that are native to the site and that area, which would be sycamore and shadbush or Juneberry.
Introduce yourself for the record, please.
My name is Teresa Guerra, 33 Ethel Lane, Hampton. And I just think this is way too big of a project. And I think your little tweaks here and there aren't helping the natural world at all. And I think that we're in a climate crisis now, and we shouldn't be building huge projects like this with tons of salt that's gonna be sprayed on the, and tar. And it's just way too big.
Thank you.
That's my comment. Thank you.
Are there any other comments in the room? Any comments from the public online?
Yeah, if anybody wants to say something, can use the raise hand function to let me know. I do not see any yet at this time.
All right. For the applicant's benefit, I want to just reiterate again in response to the comments addressing the abutting property, just to remind you that any increase to impacts after a permit is issued requires refiling of a new notice of intent. So just making sure that you are fully certain that you can work within the limit of disturbance as drawn is of course in your best interest. All right. Anything further from the commission at this time?
Could I ask?
Sure.
So because of the tree removal, the amount of tree removal, would you be willing to add in additional plantings on top of what you're already proposing?
Yeah, so currently we're proposing about 200 trees. So it kind of is pretty close to replacing what's the 5.7 acres that's being cleared for the property, for the development. You know, it's a 23-acre development and only 5.7 acres are being cleared. So it's like 75% of the development's already being built on previously cleared land. And then within that cleared land, we're planting 200 trees. So we think it's fair. But if you have specifics on what you would like to see planted, we can try to accommodate that.
Have you done any assessment of how many trees will actually be removed?
The number of trees, no.
Do we need to know what if they're mature trees or the breast height diameter of the trees to be removed?
We can request it. It's not something that's required to be reported. Any other questions or comments at this time? Okay, so as I said, I wanted to discuss with the applicant whether it makes sense at this point to give you all a break from coming every 2 weeks and wait until we have the peer review on July, is it July 10th?
July 10th, I think. That will be the meeting.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. All right. So then we'll take a bit of a hiatus and look for a continuance to July 10th.
Motion to continue to July 10th at 6 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor, Patrick?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
That's all carried. So we'll continue to July 10th at 6 p.m., at which point we expect to have the peer review from Beals and Thomas in hand. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Our next order of business will be a public hearing continued from April 10th for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering on behalf of the Williston Northampton School for resource area delineation only at 198 Park Street, map 162, lot 4. This is Mass DEP file number 1510323. Do we have someone here to speak for this item?
We don't. I received a letter from the applicant asking for a continuance to the May 22nd meeting.
Okay. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Motion to continue to May 22nd at 6 p.m. Second.
All those in favor, Buttrick?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
So moved. We will revisit that item on May 22nd. All right, moving on to requests for certificate of compliance. Again, continued from April 10th. We have a request from One Industrial Lofts LLC, 1 Ferry Street, Mass DEP, file number 1510298 for tract 1 of the Mildred redevelopment project, map 135, 131, lot 2 and 1. And the related certificate for City of Easthampton, 1 Industrial Lofts, 1 Ferry Street, Mass DEP, file number 1510317 for slope grading, vegetation management, and stormwater basin, map 131/135, lot 1/2 and 250.
I received a letter for both those items as well, requesting to continue to the next meeting on May 22nd.
All right, can we have a motion?
We'll continue May 22nd at 6 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor, Buttrick?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
So moved. Continued to May 22nd. Moving on to enforcement actions. Cassie, do we have updates on any of these?
Yes, so the applicant submitted the new revised restoration plan just for the crossing area for the invasive.
That's 93 Northampton.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's for 93 Northampton Street is the first one that I have any updates for. I apologize.
Great. So this is map 28, lot 113, enforcement order 2022-003.
Yeah.
Do we have someone here that wants to speak to this item?
It's not hanging on there. There it is.
You're muted, Dan. Sorry, you're muted. All right, we can hear you.
Yeah, so this is Dan Itchy. We provided that information. If you guys want to talk about that, I don't know if you had a chance to read that. It was provided on Friday. We were looking to manage by physical removal by either hand loppers or mechanized sort of weed whacker type of thing for the because of the amount of vegetation, the amount of invasives that are in that area, but roughly about 50,000 square feet or so of invasive species. And I think we listed specifically, 5 or 6 different species that seem to be the dominant ones in that area.
I believe we only, oh no, I'm thinking of a different one. Sorry. I was going to say, I thought we only got this afternoon. I have not read it fully. So give me just a moment, please.
Sure.
I didn't see this yet either.
You
That
sent it
either?
out? I thought I did, but I apologize if I
Yeah,
didn't.
I don't have to.
I'm sorry.
I think we have not seen it, Dan. So can you walk us through it in more detail, please?
Yeah, I apologize.
I've got
Yeah, no problem. So what we discussed to do is to physically cut down all the invasive, it's predominantly woody species that are the invasives. There are some garlic mustard, but I didn't see a lot of that in that area. So we're going to cut it, going to drag the vegetation out of the wetland or the buffer zone area and remove that off site, and then revisit that the following growing season. And to see how effective the removal was, I believe our success standard is similar to the Army Corps in that they allow up to 20% invasive species within a wetland replication area. So I'm sort of applying a similar standard to this restoration. We certainly can talk about that percentage, but the idea would be that there in one growing season, there would be a 80% loss of the invasives that are within that zone. And what I'm going to do is go out through the areas with a marker spray paint and mark all the species that need to be cut. Frank's crew will come through and they'll hand lop or use a weed whacker type thing with a sort of a brush blade on it in order to cut them because it goes a little bit faster that way. And that's the main objective, is to remove it that way. Typically speaking, removing it that way, we should have other vegetation that's not being removed to grow in its place and sort of choke out the invasive areas. That's the usual method we use for vegetation management plans at airports, is that sort of methodology of remove the invasives, monitor later. Let's see how the natives are coming in or the endemic species that are already there, and see how they're essentially choking out the invasives. So that's the goal, not to use glyphosate at this point. If there's an excessive growth of it and if it comes back, then maybe we'll revisit that later. But I'd rather just mechanically or hand remove the woody vegetation at this point.
And so you'll be hand pulling the garlic mustard
Yeah,
to get the roots.
exactly. Yep.
Okay. And Cassie, do you remember what our when we as a commission hired for invasive removal for one of our properties, what was the success rate that we targeted? Does anybody
I
recall?
don't remember, but I can pull it up. This was, so what you're referring to is for the Echodale Farm area. That had a lot of bittersweet and multiflora rose, I think, was the primary there. And I do believe that glyphosate and similar materials was used. They did like a hand brush application. Yeah, cut stem treatment, things like that. That was a pretty big area too. But I can pull it up if you want. But I don't remember what the success rate was.
I think it would make sense to aim for the same target that we look for our.
Yeah, look for success criteria or target goals, something like that, Cassie.
Okay, I can pull it up. Hold on just a second. Let's see here.
80% sticks in my head, but I don't.
I was thinking it was higher.
Maybe. It's just a place, grass coverage. Erosion control.
And just while Cassie's looking that up, if we don't achieve at this point, the 20%, then additional continued cutting would happen and to reduce that number. So that would be phase 2 if we weren't successful in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And when would the cutting happen then?
Well, all of that's going to have to wait until the whole MIPA process goes through and orders of conditions are issued. So I don't know yet. I have in there, we need to wait to see when all these sort of permits settle out to know exactly when we can do it. And I think at that point, we'll just discuss with each other what's the appropriate time. Typically, the fall is a good time to be doing this removal process.
This is a completely separate matter. Why are we waiting for permits to be issued for a different project?
Are you going to, if you're going to allow us to go in there and do work within wetland jurisdiction, that's fine by us. Under the enforcement, you can do that. I mean, most of this work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to that intermittent stream.
That's the expectation, that we act on the enforcement order
Okay.
sooner than later.
Sure.
It was supposed to be acted on months ago.
I mean, if your preference is for the folks to act on this soon, or by this summer, then that's fine too. We could do that.
Yeah, and I would think that the sooner we get things out of there, the more time we have in this growing season for other material to get a strong foothold without the invasives in place. And I know that all of that stuff was leaked out when I was out there a few weeks ago. So we should be able to move forward with this immediately.
Okay. Yep. I'll let Frank know. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't disagree that we can certainly identify all the species that are necessary for removal, and they can work on the process right away.
Yeah, part of why I was asking about the timing, I'm not an invasive species expert, but I know that bittersweet and burning bush and all that stuff has all got berries by the fall, and as you're cutting it down, it's dropping berries everywhere. So I would think before it forms berries,
Yep.
Just logically makes sense to me.
Yep.
Okay, so sorry, just to make sure that I have it correct. What the commission would like to see is have them marked as soon as possible and have them cut as soon as possible, or just in the fall? Just cut them soon?
Yes.
Okay. And
Removed as soon as possible.
Okay.
Did you find that
Yes.
other number, Cassie?
Yes. Hold on just a second. Okay, thank you for bearing with me. So I found the document. This is from May 19, 2022. This is from Land Stewardship, Inc. Let's see here. So let's see. I'm gonna screen share it so y'all can see what I'm looking at. See if anyone finds it before I do. See, I don't know. I feel like we were talking about what the criteria would be, but I don't know that I see it here explicitly listed.
That's too small to read.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's not jumping out.
So maintenance ship, it wouldn't be under payment schedule. And then it just said, up here, that was the
It
map.
doesn't really say.
Almost positive we had something with it in there. It could have been,
Can you go to the bottom, Kelsey?
Of this.
could have been the one Ferry Street,
The bottom of the whole thing.
Oh, so sorry.
Go up. Keep going. What video are you seeing?
It must have been in something else. We'll have to look.
Yeah, sorry.
what about the lower Milk Pond, dam embankment vegetation removal associated with one Ferry Street?
Yes.
That has one.
Yeah, that did have one too.
We can also look into this and come back to it. We don't need to dwell on this today.
Oh, I'm sorry. I found it. I just found it. This is another one that they resubmitted it, revised in July 1st, 2022. It says here, Commission must ask for this in the revision.
Ask for that.
Our objective is to achieve 90% invasive plant control by the completion of our proposed series of treatments. There's a period of, my understanding, it's a period of 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2025.
That was 90% success after successive treatments though, right? Whereas we're talking for this one, 80% for, well, I guess I haven't actually looked at the text. Yeah,
Well, so I think for one, the way this seems to read is that there'll only be another round of treatment if the 20% goal is not met. And we had previously asked for, I believe, at least 2 seasons of management. Do you have
Okay.
time, Kathy?
I do have the notes from last time. I think it was, yeah, it's supposed to be like 2 falls, I thought. 1 fall and then another fall.
I think that's what we had talked about before when we were thinking about it as chemical treatment.
I would say if you, based on your ASAP treatment method, if we treated soon, then we could do an inspection this fall and see what the effectiveness of that treatment was. And sort of keeps with that fall program that I'm hearing here. And then if you want to add a second year, then, you know, that's certainly your call.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so let's do removal as soon as possible. We'll do a inspection in the fall to see where we're at. And then at least the spring follow-up for a second round.
Yep.
As we previously discussed. And let's change that 80% to a 90% success target. Any other comments or suggestions?
No. See a public call.
We have a public comment.
Marty Klein, 7 Stonepath Lane. I have years of experience working with invasives on Pascoe Conservation Trust properties. I'm currently working with Stewardship Inc., Jessica there, on a proposal to treat several other properties. I can tell you now, that just cutting woody invasives such as bittersweet, Japanese knotweed. What are some of the others? Barberry. Any of the woody ones. You're wasting your time if you just cut them. They're only going to come up. The only way to do it is to cut them and paint them with an herbicide. Cutting is not effective because they grow through the roots, they spread through the roots. So cutting them will do nothing but spread them even more. So you need to reconsider them. And also, I'll just mention a point I mentioned before, having to do with planting in the restored areas. And there was this gentleman who spoke earlier, mentioned piling up mulch against the shrubs and trees in those restored areas to protect them from rodents or something. And I brought up the point that unless you put wire cages around those plants that you put in, because of the large deer herd there, they'll all get eaten up. So wire cages are a necessity.
Right, we're not proposing any planting as part of this
Yeah, just a future reference.
restoration at this point, but thank you. Your mention of barberry reminds me that in my site visit, I did note extensive barberry in that area, so that should be added to this list as well, Dan.
Okay.
I'm open to others' comments regarding physical removal versus the chemical treatment. If we set the success rate, it's,
To get that success rate, you're gonna have to cut and paint it probably.
but it will be on the proponent to reach that rate. So if they prefer to start with physical removal first, I mean, it will work for some of these. For garlic mustard, it certainly works.
Sure.
But I'm open to either approach as long as we have the document written so that we're committed to meeting that target.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the commission being open to use of glyphosate or some appropriate herbicide. And because we've got a staged effect here, let's try the mechanical. Let's just try hand removing it and let's see how it goes. And you have a standard that you're requiring, and we have to meet that standard. If it takes 3 growing seasons, then that's what it's going to take. But you've generated a standard, so we'll work towards achieving that standard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll look for an updated plan that captures those pieces that we've discussed. And in the meantime, I think even before that's finalized, well, as long as Kathy has seen that, we're good for you to move forward with initiating the treatment.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
So
And we'll certainly let her know when the timing is going to happen, just so everyone's aware. If you start getting phone calls, you'll understand what's happening. So.
And the commission wants to get an updated document that shows what was discussed tonight.
Yes.
Does it need to say anything about the removal of the crossing timeline of when that would have to happen? I think at the last meeting, the commission said 2 years, but after 2 years, they wanted, I don't know if that would make sense in here.
I mean, you can't remove the crossing until the proposed bridge is built.
I thought at the last meeting, it was determined that they were going to give this extension for 2 years. I don't know. That's what I had in my notes.
Right. We had discussed, because we wanted to have a contingency in case this project did not actually move forward or didn't move forward.
Oh, I got you. Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, but I don't think that needs to be, this is titled a proposed invasive species mitigation plan. So I don't think that needs to be in here. It's in our notes, it's in our records.
Yes.
It's in the minutes,
It
so
is.
that's fine.
Okay, great. So once I get it from you, Dan, the new updated document, once I confirm everything's good in there, I'll put it to the next meeting to allow that work to carry on.
Correct. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay.
What about the New England seed mix? When do they?
That
Start
won't
to
have
put
anything
that
to
in.
do with this.
When they restore the area with the
restoration.
crossings in?
They said they were gonna put it in the restoration area, including the cross.
That's if that project goes forward. That has nothing to do with the enforcement order.
But if the project doesn't go forward, they still have to remove the existing unpermitted crossing. That will involve restoration.
Correct.
Yes. If we hit that timeline that we said
Okay.
we were willing to wait for.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm certain it's in the minutes and the recording from last time that we talked about that and said we would revisit it as necessary if we didn't move forward within a certain time period. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what that time period was, but we can go back and find it. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Wait a minute, Kathy.
Just my notes here, thank you.
I'm all set, right?
You are. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
All right.
Dan.
Thank you all. Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, I've got it, okay.
Do we have any other enforcement updates, Kathy?
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
6973 Loud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So let me swap that with you here. So it's up there. So, we received things. I don't know that anyone on the call here is for this item.
So this is Loudville Condominiums LLC, 6973 Loudville Road, enforcement order 2023-001.
Correct. So where we left it off with the commission was that the commission determined they wanted to hire somebody to do oversight of the sediment removal. They were able to secure a vacuum that we could physically do it. And I've been working since that time to set that up with SWCA. I received the funds to complete the work, to do that oversight. I believe it was on Thursday, and put it in the escrow accounts ready to go. And then I emailed all the parties, SWCA and all the folks from 6973 Loudville. I've not yet gotten a response about when they're ready to do it. It depends on when the vacuum truck is ready to go, but SWCA seems pretty flexible to be able to do it whenever they need it. So, just waiting to hear back when the vacuum truck is available to do the work. They said it should take 2 to 3 days to do it. And then SWCA will be monitoring and will provide a report of how that went.
Okay. And in the meantime, I think you were going to also reach out to SWCA to get some information on what the in-stream impact assessment would look like.
Yes, I apologize. I haven't done that yet. I did talk to DEP again, though, a different person at DEP, Tom Griskus, who's also a circuit rider. He wasn't sure about what we could use, but he said he agreed that it made sense to talk to SWCA about it, but I apologize. I haven't gotten that information from them yet. Okay. What I did receive, though, is an updated sediment removal plan or restoration plan from them, from the Lebeck Associates, who is the consultant for the project managers. Should be that one right there that you got your hand on, I think.
What's the date on
It says 420.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
420.
so this is a newer one.
Yeah, you sent us something just this afternoon, right? This is the one I was thinking of that just came in a couple hours ago.
Yeah, yes. I thought I had shared it with you all before, but we haven't had a meeting since then.
So it is this 420?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's right. Yeah, sorry, because the meeting on the 24th was canceled. You all haven't had a chance to look at it yet, and I thought I had sent it to you before, and I realized I hadn't, so. There was a list of things that the commission had asked for to be updated in there. One of the things that Commissioner Rogers pointed out was the monitoring after every 0.25 inch increment should be, but it still says point. That's one little piece, but I can give you an overview of what they listed as having changed in there. You said yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, I just had a thought pop in my head. Has anyone checked that material is still there after 3.5 to 4.5 inches?
I went there the next day.
Yeah.
And and I've been getting the reports from them, so it's good. Yeah, it's still
Thank
contained,
you.
it's still there, yeah.
Meanwhile, I guess it's control, it's not going into the stream.
Correct. It has erosion controls around it. That was established the next day, but they're still good and holding. And okay, so the updates that they described to this plan that you have there was that they added an area of access along the slope. They added the slope percent of the bank restoration area and the equipment access route. This is Ryan saying that he took count there, and there are approximately 1 hardwood tree sapling, which he thinks is an oak. There's 1 striped maple and about 6 hemlock saplings that would be in the way along that access route. This plan is not yet approved by the commission. This is updates you guys wanted to see. Next one was that they added a temporary sediment storage location an upland location on the plan, and then revised the proposed seed mix for wetland area for a shade tolerant blend. They added proposed supplemental plantings in the wetland restoration area. And then lastly, they incorporated detail on slope amendments utilizing geofabric in lifts. Exact specification to depend on manufacturer / type. So that has to do with the eroded portion of the slope from the water flowing down it. The commission had asked them to explore using those lifts there.
See that seed mix?
I don't, is the seed mix listed somewhere, Cassie?
I would think all that I received was that. Hang on, so I can try on the screen here.
Because this just says appropriate seed mixes. In the notes.
Curious, because I've never found a good shade tolerant seed mix.
I'm not seeing it anymore.
Yeah, all I see is a little call out to the area saying that it should have a wetland restoration seed mix for shade areas. It doesn't specify what it would be.
Okay, so we'd like to see a plant list for that seed mix. This is a little bit of an unusual detail for these from what I'm accustomed to. Are you familiar with this approach, Dan?
You're talking for the lifts?
Yeah.
Okay, just enter that in here.
I would like clarification for one on whether the geogrid fabric called for in here is a biodegradable or not. Typically, the word geogrid to me would say something that lasts forever. And I don't think that's what we had asked for.
Preference for biodegradable, obviously.
Also, they're showing an armored toe. I don't know that that would be appropriate for our case, particularly as they're showing it going into a wetland. I don't think that's something that we would want to see.
Armored toe, no armored toe, okay.
And do they show where they're going to use this? It also seems strange that they would be covering the lifts with an additional erosion control blanket.
Maybe just to protect the material that they're putting into the lift until it gets established.
That should be contained by the
You think it should be completely
lift
encompassed?
material itself,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the point.
Okay.
This is more like what the Loudville,
Sure.
detail looked like, which was steeper.
That's very steep, yeah.
Yeah.
And we also don't have any plant list for that proposed lift area. The detail says native shrubs, but there's nothing spelled out.
Oh, yeah, that's just, there's a list on top of this, restoration plantings for the access.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, let's try that.
So we need some more information.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Do you have any requests for what the specific plantings, obviously native, you think you'd like to see here? You want them to just propose?
I would like them to propose.
Okay. And
Did you get any pictures when you were?
oh, sure, yeah.
You did.
This says geogrid is polyester polypropylene.
It usually is.
Let's see here. So I didn't see getting the regular monitoring reports. I think the let's see, when was our big read?
Where's armored toe mean?
It basically means that they would put a bunch of stone or something. Or underneath at the bottom. Where it meets the base.
So the pictures from when I went out on April 24th after that big rain, if you'd like you want to see them.
This is after the, yeah, that'd be helpful.
Hold on a second. Let me get into where we're at.
Lost our audience. So we're left online.
All right, let me start sharing here. Okay, this is down in the area. So I believe this would be looking upstream, and then the slope is behind me, kind of to the left of me here.
Mhm.
What is coming up are those
Skunk
skunk
cabbage.
cabbages? Yeah.
Industrious skunk cabbage. They were out there when I went there, showing everything up.
See,
This is looking up the slope where it came down.
pretty much still look cool.
This is just looking at the brook. This is looking downstream. The erosion control fencing is to the right of this image.
What were we looking at there, Betsy?
So this is the corner where the slope is up above here. And then it had, when it originally occurred, it kind of carved this path here along and flowed down towards the stream. Kind of, it went parallel to the stream for a time.
Right up with it.
Yeah.
What is that looks like flattened or
It looks like,
trampled vegetation?
it looks like skunk cabbage that
Yeah.
got trampled,
Skunk cabbage. That was trampled, I'm assuming.
They got trampled and flooded.
flooded.
I couldn't say.
Okay.
Couldn't say. This is looking down, carrying on from that area. That corner is just to the right of this image. I'm just kind of following that path where it had gone before. But it didn't look like to me like any of the sediment had escaped down this similar path is what I was looking for.
Good.
And this is where it had connected.
So did the brook overflow its banks to go into that new channel also?
I don't know. It seems potentially possible, though I've never seen
Well, something
historically.
not good skunk cabbage over.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any pictures of the eroded slope area?
Potentially when I started walking back. Let's see. Back up. No, I didn't take any specific pictures of the slope area.
Okay. If you're out there again, could you get some?
Yes.
To get a better
Did it
view of
look like
that?
it changed much?
No, I didn't notice any major change when
Okay.
I was there.
Okay.
Like there wasn't more sediment built up on the edges or anything.
Good.
And then I do have pictures from when I first went out there of the
Right.
slope area if you want to see that. But if you're more curious about how it's changed, I can, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'll do another site visit.
Okay, great. Anything further on that one for now?
Where they put the stockpile?
Yeah.
Is this a different area than what they had first proposed?
We had talked about it being near this basin. I don't remember if we had identified a particular place.
They talked about putting it near, they mentioned specific units, but they wanted to put it near one of the units, which is not yet completed. If I look at the plan here. They said that, you know, my understanding of why they were choosing that, at least from what they had said at the last meeting, was that they were going to be able to kind of dig down and put it in this kind of hole and then surround it by self-fencing, which is why they wanted to do that. They needed it to dry out before they removed it,
Right.
ultimately to go to their Ludlow lot.
And it's outside of Riverfront, right? I think the dash line here is Riverfront.
It just looked like it's closer to the basin, and I thought we had discussed we didn't want it near.
Right, I remember that. So the commission had talked about like, oh, but isn't it close to the basin? And they were like, we can move it somewhere else if you want. But then they talked about that. That's where they have the area to like dig down and do it. So if the commission doesn't want it there, they seemed open to it not being there. That was the reasoning. I don't know if there was a determination made about that one way or the other.
If it's outside of resource areas, I don't feel particularly strongly about it.
And it's gonna be surrounded by fencing, right?
Correct.
So fence.
Theoretically, it won't go into the basin.
It shouldn't. But it'll need to be like monitored. They'll include it in there, monitored going forward.
And it's a good, looks like 60 feet from the top of the slope. Good setback. So I'm okay with that as shown. All right, shall we move on?
So, do you, yeah.
Public question?
Yeah, Marty Klein, 7 Summit Lane. Yes, will there be any restoration done?
That's what we still need to determine, because we wanted to reach out to SWCA, because we're already using SWCA to monitor the sediment removal. And then what Julia asked me to do was to talk to them about what in-stream restoration could be done, and then just general restoration of the area afterwards, because we only sorted out phase 1 with just sediment removal. So that was something that I was going to talk to them about, and hopefully have more information for the next meeting of what they might propose. DEP didn't really have any good suggestions of in-stream what could be done. But previously the commission has talked about trying to at least look upstream to see what the conditions are there to make sure there hasn't been any significant changes, but it can be hard, I guess, to do the in-stream restoration.
Yeah, so our first goal is to get an assessment to understand if we're seeing something different below where this occurred versus upstream, and then go from there to think about how we would mitigate that. But we wanted to get all of this sediment lifted out of there as soon as possible so the vegetation could grow. And then we'll address that next piece as soon as we can figure out what that looks like. Do you have any particular ideas? We're open to hearing them.
Sorry.
If you have any particular ideas, we're open to hearing them. We have not dealt with that issue before, so we're not entirely sure what this is gonna look like.
You know, given the scale of this disaster.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And the proponent is aware that what they're doing now is just a first phase, and that we're expecting to have additional work.
That's correct. I wrote a letter to them. I wrote a new letter based off of our 410 meeting that explained all the phasing and where it was at. And the commission made a good point to explicitly say, like, it's just sediment removal we're doing right now. So, yeah, I told them about this meeting. I anticipated that they would come to discuss this, but I don't know. I'm not here. So.
Okay. All right. Any open space updates? Do you need a minute to catch up on
One
those?
more,
Oh, do we have another enforcement?
Oh, yeah.
Industrial park.
And that industrial parkway.
All right.
And basically the only update is that, the commission asked for like essentially in kind replacing.
Mhm.
He did do that. I don't know if I can track his letter that he sent me that explained what he had done. And basically where I left it off was that the commission needed to talk about what he had done. Do you feel like that was sufficient? Do you want more? So he sent Bullet that he had planted the area with 8 trees, seeded it, and added the wattle along the limit of disturbance in addition to that silt fencing that was he had already put in place.
Mhm.
And so My suggestion, based off of what the commission has done in the past, is that next spring, come out and take a look, make sure it's been successful, those things that were added, unless you guys want more or anything else to be added to
What did
that.
he plant, Kelsey?
Let's see if he said it in his letter.
Because I believe we had talked about also, we talked about sweet fern as something that might
Oh, yeah,
establish
we
well
did.
there, and it would help to anchor the slope and get root growth quickly.
Mhm.
I think that would still, not having seen what it looks like right now, I think that would likely still be beneficial.
But you have pictures.
I do.
Okay.
Well, I only have the ones that he sent me thus far, so I can send them, I can share them with, on the screen right now for you. I haven't done a site visit yet, because I wanted to hear you guys' response first, since we had the pictures already. But now I'll reach out to them and say sweet fern, and then what are the tree planting species that you've done? I know that at the, meeting, you guys talked about like wanting essentially just what was the species that had already been there.
So he said he was gonna plant pines and maples.
Right,
Because that's
okay.
what was there.
Okay, cool,
So, but if that's what it is or not, we don't know.
okay.
Are these
These are the pictures, let's see if they'll.
These are the new pictures?
We're not really gonna be able to see much of anything.
Yeah, these are the new pictures, yes. So he put this, added the wattle along the limited disturbance to the existing silt fencing that was there. And then he planted, you can kind of see some of them, but I know it's hard, it's all kind of jumbled.
So I do think, and obviously he's seeded and that hasn't come up yet, but I do think some other woodies, that'll have quicker root growth than the trees would be beneficial.
So like
To
shrubs
help
and
hold
things.
this in place.
Okay, sweet fern, and then also some shrub plants.
Sweet fern is the shrub that
Oh, sorry.
comes to mind
Okay.
as one that I think will likely take off well here in this exposed disturbed area and has a good capacity to hold and anchor slopes and spread.
Okay. And then I'll do a site visit after that. And then does that make sense? The commission wants those things are planned for next spring to come out again or before resolving this?
I think we should see how the seed mix grows in later this season.
Okay,
So we'll want to see a report, I don't know, in a month or two, and then monitor again next season as well.
okay.
And the intent is to leave the silt fence and the wattles in place
Yeah, that's my understanding, yeah.
for
So
now,
even that,
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
because,
Good.
I think in the future, he's planning to do work outside of the 100-foot buffer zone.
And we talked about wanting to limit movement across their area.
Yes. Okay, great.
Any open space update?
No updates.
I have a
Oh,
question
yes,
on the Echo Dale. Do we know what the next scheduled treatment is? The timing of that for any invasive removal?
I'm gonna reach out to her. I know we have the plan. I can pull it
Yeah,
up
I
again.
just-
Just to see
Off
what
the
it
top of my
says.
head, I didn't know. I was speaking with Russell from Park Hill this weekend, and he thought it would be good to do another mow of that area, but we don't want to interfere with what they're doing with, cut stem treatments or
Right.
anything like that, and have them paint and then get them mowed and destroy it all.
Mhm.
It says they're supposed to do spring foliar treatment.
So I don't know if that's happened already or not.
Okay,
What is foliar treatment?
Spraying leaves. So Kathy, if
And
you
then
could reach
mowing
out
in the summer.
to land stewardship and just get us an update.
yes.
And also, he would be interested in possibly helping out with removal of some of the trees that are on the ground that would make it easier to, I mow around things because there's big pieces that I can't mow through. And he'd be willing to help clear some of those things, but also I know that we need to have some kind of release if someone outside the city is
Yeah.
working on the property. So I don't know. He said something maybe, put a crew together, but I said, well, that's really an issue for the city to be able, so I don't know if that's something you want to talk to Jeff about. If we have 5 people show up there, all sign waivers, is that acceptable?
Right.
You know, that's because then that could clear up the stuff that's on the ground, and we could mow it really nice and get it to near the trees, and then it'd be easier to control the invasives that are more visible.
Okay. All right, well, I'll reach out to her about that and mention that you guys are willing to do that, and then I'll talk to Jeff and figure out. I think it was just like what you did with the mowing, is you just
I
got
just
that
signed,
waiver, so.
I bring myself over, I can't sue you.
Oh, that's nice, yeah.
All right. Moving on to compliance updates. Which ones do we have? Kathy?
So what I have highlighted here.
E.
So for, I should have said this before, but for One Ferry, we're doing a site visit tomorrow with the city engineer for the track one and the slope.
Is that anything different than the site visit that we did before?
It will be different because
Okay.
now the city engineer will be there.
Okay.
So that's the whole, we're welcome to join him, but it's
Okay.
his show really.
For the
Stormwater.
yeah.
Yeah, compliance with the
That's his
stormwater.
required visit.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then that was all I had. I highlighted here, so,
Does it?
yes. we
All
can
right.
Go to general business. And then we can go from there.
Well, before we do that, what's going on with the school?
The school?
Yeah, when I drive by the stormwater things and look at the silt fence that's still up in the areas that are still there and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
So I did a site visit, I think in March. I think at the last meeting, I gave an update that their plans did not yet finish the basin in the rear. So they need to do that work. They did install the under drain that they got the change for. But they need to, install the, fix the sides. There was like erosion around the sides. It's just not done, So I think that they likely need to remove accumulated fine sediment that's accumulated there as well. And then there was other areas of the landscaping that just wasn't successful. They wanted to fix. But most of it is done, but they're not ready to come for a certificate of compliance.
Thank you.
We don't have any sense of the timeline for that.
Not yet, no.
Okay. Do we have minutes to approve?
Yes, and Commissioner August was able to review them, and I made the changes that she requested.
All right, so meeting minutes from April 10th. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for April 10th.
I'll second.
All those in favor of Buttrick?
Aye.
Barb?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
So moved.
Good work.
No, you have a lot of work to do too.
Yeah, that was a,
Yeah, this is a
that
hefty
was
one.
quite,
It was fun.
Kathy, can you tell us what this biodiversity, environment, and ecological sustainability Bees committee member item is about?
The Bees Committee, so it's new. It was approved by the city council to form this Bees Committee tonight.
Hey, Martin.
And it requires that it be made up of one member of the conservation committee or their designee for a term of 3 years. And then a number of others, you want me to list them. It also says here that should any of the commission boards, councils, who have appointment authority under this chapter be no longer in existence, or shall they elect not to appoint a member to the committee, the appointment authority for that commission, board, or city board or council shall become the responsibility of the mayor, such appointments being subject to approval by the city council. And then that's kind of the details of what I'm asking here is they want to know if there's anybody's willing to be a member, represent the conservation commission on that committee.
What is it?
And
We don't know what it is yet.
The committee itself is, let's see, what's the best, I was able to isolate something that described it. The purpose and duties of the Biodiversity, Environment, and Ecological Sustainability Committee is to facilitate discussion and implementation around matters pertaining to establishing, expanding, and maintaining environmentally and ecologically responsible and responsive policies. These include, but are not limited to, I can read this whole thing if you want, but it lists biodiversity, environmental stewardship, ecological sustainability, review and advise on matters related to climate action plans, municipal vulnerability preparedness, master plan, and then climate resiliency, developing a native plant policy for municipal and commercial parcels, planning and facilitating resident programs and initiatives such as No Mow May, developing policies on pesticide use and an integrated pest management plan, pursuit of affiliations, designations, certifications for the city, such as the Xerxes Society's Bee City program, discussion of all other green measures in the city. And so I can read more about biodiversity and environmental stewardship and ecological sustainability if you'd like.
Anyone needs to hear details?
Right.
Do we have a deadline for when we need to nominate someone?
I didn't get a deadline. I can ask, but this was from Barbara had reached out to me. I can see when it was. I think potentially your hope was that we would have discussed it because meeting had to be canceled.
Okay.
Let me just see here.
Do you know if they started meeting yet?
No, I don't think that they have. I don't think that they've sorted out all the people who need to be on it yet.
Any initial thoughts?
I'm interested, but I'm not jumping in because I'm
For this
trying
one,
not
I
to
don't think-
overcommit.
The last meeting, no one was here, so
No meeting.
how would you know?
I don't want to volunteer him without him being here, but it kind of sounds like something that might be up Hal's alley.
House was very excited about the pollinator action plan and bees, so maybe, yeah, I know he's not here, but I
You
think
should
that's it.
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All up there.
That's how it works.
Yes,
That's
But
how it
I
works.
do think it might
Miss a
be
meeting.
up his alley.
You're not here to defend yourself.
Do I hear a motion?
Wait, so maybe what we can do is, if everyone agrees that it'd be okay, I can ask him. And then
Sure.
if he's cool with it, then I will tell her that he's the guy. If he's not cool with it, we'll talk about
Yeah,
that.
sounds like a plan.
I'm cool with it till the mayor because it's too late already.
Kathy, if he is not interested, would you email us so that we can think
Yes.
about, because it said it could also be someone that we select, that doesn't have to be one of our
It
members,
can be a
right?
designee.
And I have a couple other people in mind that might be interested, so, it wouldn't necessarily have to be one of us.
Yeah, and then if there is no designee and it can't be any of you all, then you can tell them the mayor can appoint someone. In your own stead, so.
I think we can probably find someone.
Sweet.
I'm curious, besides the fact that he's not here, why people think how
I've spoken to him about it explicitly when they were developing a pollinator action plan. And he was really interested in that and interested in pollinators and specifically bees. So
We're not throwing them under the bus.
And he has a background in
I think it's mostly fish related.
fish, yeah,
But
some kind of
very
aquatic
scientific.
systems, yeah. I think I think you might be into it.
We're not doing site visits together anymore, is that you don't get to know.
You don't know people, yeah.
As well.
Yep. All right, wetlands ordinance, we have a working group meeting tomorrow evening.
Correct.
So we don't have anything new to report just yet, but hopefully we will at the next meeting. And I do think we're gonna be joined by,
Tom Huttenhauser.
Yeah.
From
PCT.
That's correct.
We asked him to join and weigh in and give us some suggestions and help us think through some issues.
He confirmed a while back that the 9th worked for him. I sent that email to the group, but I didn't get a response saying like yes or no, but last time he said yes, so I'm assuming yes. What's that?
Who?
Tom Lautenheiser?
From PCT. I think that's it. Any other general business? Want to make a motion to adjourn?
How we actually got. I'll move to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
All those in favor, Butcher?
Bye.
Clark?
I
August?
Aye.
Aye.
Whittemore? Brian?
Aye.
Motion carries. It is 7:27 and we are adjourning this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Our next meeting will be May 22nd at 6 p.m.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Thank you.
Last meeting.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.